Good afternoon. I am Arvise Washington, the Deputy Director for the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs, led by our distinguished director, Mr. Jimmy Smith. On behalf of OSBP, we thank you for joining us today. We started this webinar series as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to continue outreach, but received such rave reviews, we decided to keep it going, committing to hosting at least 3 webinars a month. The Department of Navy recognizes small businesses are the catalyst of innovation, and we use this platform as a way to attract new business partners. You can view previously recorded events on our website under the Outreach and Past Events tab, or you can visit our YouTube channel. I would like to take the opportunity to direct you to our website at www.secnav.navy.mil/small-business, where you can find a wealth of information, including our Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs Operations Plan. You can locate your small business professional and find information on how to do business with the Department of the Navy, including the Command's Long-Range Acquisition Forecast. To stay current on OSB upcoming events, you can register for our mailing list on the homepage of our website. To stay up to date about upcoming industry days, Command's outreach, and in general, what's happening across the Department of Navy, I encourage you to connect with us on our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Please join us next Tuesday, where we feature NASA's Small Business Program with the director, Mr. Glenn Delgado. You can register for that on our website. Today we have a dynamic speaker, and I hope you seize the opportunity to ask questions using the Q&A feature on this platform. So today we're featuring the Defense Information System Agency. Ms. Carlen Capenos serves as the Director of the Office of Small Business Programs for the Defense Information Systems Agency, where she is responsible for ensuring small businesses are provided with maximum opportunities to participate at both the prime contract and subcontract levels. Through a direct result of Ms. Capenos's efforts in fiscal year 2020, DISA awarded more than $1.74 billion in prime contracts to small business. Way to go. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Capenos.
Hello, everyone. Today, I thought I would do a mini version of our DISA 101. What I would do is invite you, if you want more information, or after hearing myself speak, and I'm bringing on after me, talk about some of our premier contracts. If you find that what you do matches what we do, and there's a potential opportunity to work together, and you would like more information about DISA, our small business programs, and how to find out information about what we do and how we do it, send us an email at disasmallbusiness@mail.mil. That is the key takeaway from this. If you are interested in working with us, that any information you want or need, we can point you in the right direction from that email address. And we'll give you some more tips as we go through the slides. So the first step in doing business with us is, so what I'm looking at is our slides from our forecast industry day, where we kind of did a top 10 questions that we get asked. So I've kind of pared it down to the first couple steps in working with us. So when people ask, like, if I want to work with DISA, what's the first thing I need to do? And what I say, and what all small business professionals will tell you, is to do your homework. The first thing you need to do, again, is figure out is that if what you do is what we do. Do you sell what we buy? And so we invite you to do your homework. The DISA.mil website is a great place to start. It has a wealth of information about who we are, what we do, and who we serve. And then also the next part is on our webpage for small business. There's more information specifically targeted towards small business and how they can work with us. Again, we've already talked about requesting an invite to the DISA 101 Small Business Orientation. We're doing them at least monthly. At this point, they are all virtual, and we offer them at different times of the day so we can match reasonable times for our customers in Hawaii, as well as some that are in Europe, and then those obviously in the continental United States. The other thing that we would invite you to do is look at the key messages slides from Forecast to Industry Day from last year. They're on our website. If you can't find them, again, email us at the DISA small business at mail.mil, and we can send those to you. And then moving on to the next slide, another big question that we get asked is, how do we find contracting opportunities? I think that slide, yeah, there we go. One thing that I really like about DISA, and I think that is really good business practice, is that we too have our rolling forecast always available to industry. It's always on the DISA.mil website. I will tell you that sometimes we actually hide it. But if you can ever not find it, just email us and we'll send it directly to you. Currently, this is the email or the website where it is located. We update it twice a year, generally in conjunction with the AFCEA TechNet event in May in Baltimore. And then also when we do our Forecast to Industry Day, which traditionally is in November. And so the current forecast was updated in December, so it's very current. And then the other thing is beta.sam for our sources sought notice. When we publish a sources sought notice, it is always for a real requirement where we're generally trying to figure out what our acquisition strategy is. And not only can we set it aside for small business, but is there another federally designated category that we have enough expectation of competition that we can set it aside for that as well. Okay, next slide, please. All right, some more information about how to find out about DISA opportunities. If you are an innovative company and you are looking for non-traditional ways of getting into DISA, you might want to sign up to look at our OTAs, our other transaction authorities. We're in our third year now with having this authority. We are putting out more requests for white papers, and we are awarding more agreements from these white paper requests. But the Dreamport.tech website, you can not only see what we've put out there, but you can sign up to be notified anytime that we post a potential opportunity coming down. The other way of doing business is if you have something that we need that we aren't currently having requests for proposals out, you can actually submit an unsolicited proposal in accordance with FAR 15.6, and that is the email address that accepts the unsolicited proposal. And then we always get asked, hey, I have this product and I'd really like to show it to you. Do you do product demonstrations? I mean, the answer is yes. We call them TEMs, Technical Exchange Meetings. And that email at the bottom of the slide is where you can sign up, not only to request getting on this schedule to demonstrate your product, but also you can sign up to be notified when other companies are demonstrating their products. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so a question that we get asked all the time is, how do I get a contract? And so my standard answer, coming from a contracting background and being in small business for a number of years, is that nobody's going to give you a contract. So I always tell the story of, you know, again, I've been in the contracting industry and the small business sector for years, and I've met with a number of contractors multiple times. I see them back in the old days when we'd go out to conferences and have booths and meet companies, and they would always ask me, hey Carlen, you know what, I'm doing everything that you've told me to. I have responded to your sources sought notices. I'm attending all these events. I go to every single event that I can go to that anybody at DISA speaks at, and I still don't have a contract. And I'll say to them, I'm like, well, okay, so on the last contract that you proposed, or last solicitation you proposed on, what did the contracting officer tell you was the reason that you didn't win? And all the time they go, Carlen, we haven't gotten that far yet. To which I would say, Well, how do you think you're going to get a contract if you don't propose? And it is one of those things where so many companies like miss that step for some reason, or they don't think about it, or they're just waiting for that perfect opportunity. And, you have to propose on work with DISA or any other agency you're targeting, because you have to find out, are you in the ballpark? Now, if you propose and win, obviously you are, but sometimes you need to figure out, oh, okay, I didn't win because I was priced too high. Okay, the price piece is the easiest thing to fix. But if you didn't get it because your past performance wasn't comparable to the winner, or your technical response wasn't, are those things you can fix? Are those things that you can get more experience? Are you in a position where by tweaking your proposal or looking at maybe different partnerships or different experiences or different pricing methodologies, can you win? And if the answer is, oh yes, then keep proposing. And you might find out, well, you know what, I'm not really ready yet, or there's a lot of things I don't know. But use it as a learning experience to figure out, do I keep looking at DISA as a prime contractor, or maybe I need to subcontract, or maybe I'm just not in the ballpark yet. But you are never going to know the answers to those questions until you actually propose and get the feedback. And even if you're an 8A, we get marketed and solicited by 8A companies all the time. Hey, I'm in the 8A program. That's great. That's a great program. And yes, we utilize it. Yes, we do sole sources. But what I would say to you, and I said this 3 times on Tuesday when I meet with vendors, you're an 8A contractor who's never done business with DISA before. Why should DISA take a risk when we don't know you, you don't know us, you don't have an experience? And that's not to say you aren't the right answer, but why are you the right answer? Maybe coming in and proposing and winning and knocking our socks off and then finding out you're 8A, that is a really good way to utilize that program. The other one, we talked briefly about it, subcontract with our primes. After me, Chris Riley's going to come in and talk about 2 of our really large premier contracts that we execute a lot of work from. And while those contracts have already been awarded, they do have substantial subcontracting opportunities. All of the contractors, large and small, have a requirement to subcontract every federally designated category. And so that's another opportunity to get in. We've already talked about number 3, which is do your homework. This website goes directly to our fact sheets, which has a 2 or 3 page statement about every program that we run. The other thing that it has are what we call lookbooks, which puts names and faces to the one set's for the contracting folks, one set's for our development and business directorate, one is for our emerging technologies, and one's for Ops Center. So what these books do is they focus on a different segment of DISA, and they tell you who those program managers are, who the owners of those requirements are. They tell you what the requirements are themselves, but it also helps you connect that name and that face to that requirement. So when I get to the slide that tells you how to get meetings with our personnel, you might have a better idea of the directorate or the actual person that you want or need to meet with. And then the last one is just some more information on our small business site on how to get contracts with DISA. All right. Seti and Encore. So Seti and Encore are 2 of our premier contracts, as I've already mentioned. They are both multi-billionaire, multi-year contracts with IDIQs. I'm going to save most of the information about this to Chris Riley, because he's going to talk specifically about these 2 contracts. But if you want to do work with this, it's important to know about these 2 contracts, because they're what we call a first look contract, meaning that when we put these really large multiple award IDIQs together, we specifically took our mission partners in mind. We specifically wrote these contracts to have terms and conditions in them that meet what we do for our mission partners. And so we look at those first to see, can the scope of work and a requirement fit on either one of these contracts? And again, systems engineering technology is focused on innovation and new problems, Encore is focused on IT solutions that are already existing, so a lot of our O&M. Again, more on that in the next presentation. But we always get asked, because they are 10-year contracts, is there on-ramping capability? And the answer is yes. And because the small business suites are both in their first year or early into their second year, and they have ample competition right now, the likelihood of us executing an on-ramp is probably around the year 4 mark. So probably in 3 more years, we'll make those decisions on whether we need to on-ramp contractors. And again, we've talked about subcontracting opportunities. You're going to get a mini version of these contracts, but if you want the full slide deck on these contracts and how DISA uses them, there's the website that points you to an expanded slide deck for those 2 contracts. All right. Excuse me. And then the number 1 most asked question that my office gets is, how do I get a meeting with the program managers? You know, you people in small business are real nice, but you're not technical and you don't know what I'm talking about, and you can't tell me your pain points, and you can't like make suggestions on how to make my proposal to get better, except to like spell check it, and we all know that. And so we have a whole group in DISA that is called Corporate Connections. And they work with industry to try to set up these meetings, among other things. But they are the place in DISA that helps you get those meetings. They have a website as well, which has a form. They do a bunch of things, but to get a meeting, there's a form to fill out. And who you are, have you met with Small Business Program Office if you're a small business office, but then who do you want to meet with? And more importantly, why should they meet with you? Why do they need to meet with you? And so the tips on these bullets on the rest of the slide are just some things that Corporate Connections have given to us to give to you to make a successful ability to get that appointment that you're looking for more likely to happen. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've already heard that we did $1.74 billion worth of small business direct contract dollars. I will also say, as we've been cleaning up our CARs, our contracting action reports, we're almost up to $1.8 billion. So the good news is that we do a substantial amount of direct awards to small business. You can also see on this slide that we did hit 5 new records in FY20. We had the highest direct dollars to small disadvantaged, women-owned, and the hub zone, and highest percentage in both the women-owned and hub zone. Unfortunately, this year we did not meet our overall small business goal assigned to DISA at 28%. And that was the first time since 2012 that we didn't make it. And we've been doing a lot of work on like why did this happen? And we've looked at a number of things. And the bottom line is that we had a number of small businesses that grew out of their small business size standard that had sizable contracts. But more importantly, we really had an increase in the number of dollars that we're awarding. DISA has been assigned some great missions, but with that comes supporting the entire Department of Defense and some major contracting actions that have been put out as unrestricted. And so our base denominator went up over $1 billion. And we expect to have that continue, that $7 to $8 billion range, which is up $1 billion, $1.5 billion from previous years, because of some new exciting missions that we're taking on. Our goal is to continue to do more small business dollars and have the percentage fall where it's going to fall based on the denominator that we have. But the next slide really just kind of has the continuation of our goals for FY21, which were the same as in 20. And then I think that's my last slide that I have. Yep. And so I'm going to transition this over to, I don't know, do we have any questions for me specifically, or do we want to wait for those?
We'll wait until Chris finishes. We did have one question in the Q&A, so we'll just go through it again at the end.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'm going to hand this over to Chris Riley. Chris Riley is the Seti PM. But he's been doing so many briefings with the Seti and the Encore. He's going to deliver both, as our Encore program manager was unavailable today. But we have full confidence in his abilities. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Carlen. So I'm going to go a couple layers deeper in what Carlen touched on with our Premier contracts. So we'll bring up our first slide. Ooh, should have sent that to you in a PDF. I promise the way it looks on my screen looks a little more innovatively superior. Let's go ahead and move to the second slide and hope that doesn't look squished. Awesome. This is from my purview, I'm going to give you a real cursory overview of DISA's most utilized Premier contract vehicles. Encore 3, which is a continuation of what you may have been familiarized with Encore 2, and Seti, which is a brand new instantiation at DISA to solve some of our really complex engineering requirements that we have in the department, not just at DISA. So Encore 3, next iteration of Encore 2, they really focus on delivering commodity IT services across the entire IT lifecycle. When you're looking to, when a requirement owner is looking to solve or modernize a requirement that's in place to maintain, sustain, or incrementally develop something that's currently out there, Encore 3 is a really wonderful competition space for them. Encore 3 has 2 competition suites, full and open and the small business suite. I'll go into the 2 suite specifics, some of the awardees in later slides. Their ceiling value is $17.5 billion, so the scope is significantly larger for Encore 3, and that's intentional than it is for Seti. There are 20 awardees, prime awardees specifically in Encore 3 on each suite, and you'll see who the small business partners are and the large business partners are in a bit so that we can discuss potential entry avenues into that vehicle if their mission space suits what you currently do. With Seti, the mission space is a little bit smaller. We're looking for solutions to real niche problem areas. The folks that are in the IT mission space across the department and even outside the department can utilize Seti to solve really high risk engineering endeavors that require an innovative approach to solve. Whether it's solving a problem that is utilizing technology that is still in the forefront of its exploration process, that's really unknown, that's potentially high risk to integrate into the DODIN, or if it's taking something we've done one way for the last 5 to 10 years with the single incumbent and looking at small businesses and non-traditional vendors and saying, look, this has done this one thing one way for 10 years. Look, can you tell us small businesses how to do this better? Can you feed us some innovation? We're hungry for it. So Seti has 2 pools as well. We have 23 small business primes, full and 14 full and open prime awardees. I'll go into some more specifics. I want you to know that this is a slick sheet infographic that is available on the DISA.mil small business site that I think Carla linked to in her slides. There's another part of this triad that's called GSMO2. GSMO2 is a single award IDIQ, however, so it doesn't have as much partnering and or on-ramping opportunities. But that's for solving some of the DODIN backbone, the real DISN backbone networking infrastructure requirements. So when you look at this on Carlen's website, you will see a third tier to the triad. I just wanted to quickly touch on that. So next slide, please. Encore 3 supports all the Department of Defense. A lot of DISA's requirements go to Encore 3. Federal agencies can utilize it, and it has scope within it for the intelligence community. That's a little bit more specific for Encore 3 than it is for Seti. Encore 3 differs from Encore 2 because it was built to incorporate some of the technology evolution that had occurred in the time that Encore 2 ran through its life cycle in the last 10 years. So you're going to see some more task areas in there regarding cybersecurity and cloud services. Just like with Seti, Encore 3 has an on and off ramping capability. If we at DISA start looking for market research on our 2 premier vehicles, and finding that mission areas that we need to have solved are not being responded to in the manner in which our requirement owners are expecting, or we're looking to solve a problem that our prime awardees just don't have expertise in. We have the ability with both vehicles to do on and off rampings at any time that we deem appropriate. And those opportunities will be announced, I believe, at FBO or sam.beta.gov. And so those are good things to keep an eye out for. We, at the program management level of both of these two premier vehicles, are really finitely looking at the level of response and the maturity of the response. Not just are folks responding to sources, salts, and RFIs and RFPs, but are they producing proposals that at the end are producing best value for the requirement after award. And so we're really trying to track these requirements in the new emerging technology space from womb to tomb to make sure that our two premier contract vehicles that we believe are servicing the entire umbrella of our IT mission, that they're able to do so in really a way that we're promising our mission partners that they should be doing. Next slide, I'm going to quickly touch on Seti, because that is Carlen and I's baby. We built this from the ground up when it was found that the department really needed a way to procure innovative technologies when there was an appetite to obtain above threshold performance requirements that may cost a little bit more. And before Seti, there was really no premier contract or IDIQ that was best value oriented, that utilized innovation at its root level. So we at Seti, we integrated innovation into every aspect of the contract vehicle. We made it our #1 most important source selection factor, which had not been done before, which meant that we were asking companies to really look inside themselves and tell us about their internal culture. How do they treat their human capital? What do they do to invest and produce things from their IR&D budgets? How have you learned from diving headfirst into a potential solution, failing forward from doing something that was really at the cutting edge of your technology area and your niche area? So we wanted to make sure that we opened the door and remove some barriers to competition for folks to get their foot into the Department of Defense, and DISA in particular. One of the ways that we did that was to remove the requirement to have a facility clearance level at time of proposal. A lot of our mom and pop engineering shops or non-traditionals or smalls that we were looking for bringing into the door didn't have facility clearances because they had not really done work with the department before. So we made sure that they knew that we were going to handhold them through that process in the event that they did win an award. We made sure that the past performance references were not required to be DISA specific or department specific. We wanted folks to tell us about what they had done in industry, what they had done for academic institutions, for research-based institutions, for small localized government. What innovations have you deployed at the state level? And so all those past performance references were relevant in selecting our Seti awardees. Little foot stomp, because of what we've done to remove barriers, Seti was nominated and thankfully selected for the Department of Defense Small Business Vanguard Award, where we won the Verdue Award for small business utilization across the department. Carl, is there anything you want to touch on that award? Because I don't think we have any slides for that, so that might be a good time to discuss kind of the facets that led to that.
I would just add that we're really proud of that award that took innovation into effect, and what we did for the the small business community and for continuing to help build the defense industrial base. And that was kind of what the award was for. What innovative techniques were you using, not only from an acquisition standpoint, by removing barriers, by changing up terms and conditions that were more conducive to non-traditionals, but also what innovative tools were you using and will you use going forward? So again, we were really proud of that because, you know, when I was in contracting and a contracting officer, we had worked so hard with industry, small and large. The other thing that I will say is that we have put in requirements for the small business participation. So not only did small businesses win prime contracts along with large businesses, but both large and small are required to continue to work with small businesses throughout the life of the 10 years. We also put in reporting requirements. So even if you're not on these contracts, we do have a directory of all the winners and all their small business contacts where you can reach out to them to say, hey, this is what we do. Are there opportunities on these contracts? Not only because we're going to be using them often in DISA, but also because it was a point for us to continue to ensure that small businesses had opportunities throughout the life cycle of these vehicles. So that's a message that we want to foot stomp. One thing we put in there is reporting requirements, where not only will all the prime contractors be reporting their subcontracting to the contracting officers who are required to monitor it, but those reports also come to the Office of Small Business Programs, my new job, so we can help monitor that and ensure that the good faith efforts, the maximum practical opportunities are available, and then we can assist and help both contractors that are on Seti and Encore 3 as well, and those that are the prime contractor holders. So just wanted to add that since you gave me the opportunity. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Two more quick points before I move on to getting into the monotony of the performance areas of each contract vehicle. So when I say Seti was built innovatively from its core, we have brought to the fold the most innovative companies that we believe that we could bring in. But we also have built into the contract a number of innovative contracting and acquisition methodologies that we can deploy within Seti to get on a contract faster and to solve problems a little bit quicker for the warfighter. So things like normalizing oral proposals and oral presentations as part of streamlining source selections. Doing competitive prototyping. So you're going to see things, we're stealing ideas from DIUX, OTAs, what GSA does, and 18F. And we've taken some of that and brought it into the FAR environment to spin up a prototyping effort quite quickly within the Seti contract vehicle and do competitive down selects. And so we have some unique contracting and acquisition tools that are built into the Seti contract that, you know, if you all out there are some of those folks that have had success in doing those before at other agencies, we really would love to hear from you in an unsolicited way of what you've seen work successfully at other agencies. We're just starting now to integrate those innovative acquisition tactics into our toolbox. And the other thing is that we're deploying an innovation playbook across our engineering task orders. So previously, there's a small little graphic here. If you blow it up, you'll see that prior to Seti, we had these disparate engineering contracts all across DISA. Each of them was utilizing a different standard methodology for development, for software development. They each were doing similar management of software sprint development cycles. And we just were doing the same thing 100 different times across the agency. And so back in 2015, our CAE at the time, Dr. Carter, said, this has got to stop. Let's create this new umbrella contract, this new premier contract, and start standardizing how we engineer and how we develop code inside of DISA for our engineering requirements. So it's kind of the three ways that we infuse innovation into Seti, looking for innovation through our awardees, with making it the most important innovation evaluation factor, normalizing innovative and engineering and software development methodologies, and deploying some agile and innovative acquisition tactics to get solutions to the warfighter a little bit quicker. All right. There's a quick question on, is it difficult to obtain an FCL? I'd like to discuss that a little bit at the end because I am kind of an FCL expert as I've moved a lot of our small businesses who were SETI awardees in now that they finally have FCLs, but I do want to come back to that one at the end. So if I could go to the performance area slides, and I'm going to try to be quick through these two. What I'm looking for you all to see here is see if something here is familiar to you all. Do you see, if you go slide 5, please. Okay, there you go. See where do you see your niche? With Encore 3, like I mentioned, it's really kind of the wounded tomb of the systems development lifecycle. It would be odd for an IT company to not fall within an area that Encore 3 has performance requirements towards. There's a little bit of development in there. There's a little bit of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, not necessarily tier 4, but up to tier 3 for operations sustainment. And so it's not perfectly laid out here, but the intent is to showcase that Encore 3 really has a very wide range of tasks and subtasks that hopefully if you do team with one of their primes, you'll be able to fit within. So something to the slide that I'm a little bit more familiar with, slide 6, please. SETI was built to be milestone A, pre-milestone A, for any of the folks with an engineering background, pre-milestone A to about milestone C in the systems development lifecycle. From taking out a bar napkin and drawing a conceptual diagram of what you're looking for, a work breakdown structure on a napkin, to really creating the code and the code iterations to get that into integrating with the DODIN. So the task areas that you'll see with SETI are technology agnostic, whereby the ones you saw on the previous slide specify technology areas that you may have expertise in. Hardware, help desks, lifecycle, cloud computing, networking. SETI is a little bit different in that we want any idea that may be for technology that we don't know about today to be able to be solved and developed within the SETI scope of work. And that's why it was designed around what we in the engineering world call the V model. So I won't walk through that here. There are specific language facets in one of our task areas, task area 8, for our special people. At DISA and in the DoD, we have special folks. And folks like SATCOM, electromagnetic spectrum, cloud, AI, and mobility, they wanted to have some unique language in the PWS that was just for them. And so if you operate in those areas, I would encourage you to look into those, into the language within task area 8. You may see something that you find yourself an expert in as well. And that's really where the growth of SETI is going to be, is in task area 8. And I don't know, 5 years ago, I didn't know that mobility was going to be a thing. If I had written SETI 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have written of cognitive computing and a mobility task area. And so we built it so that 5 years from now, as we work to compete SETI 2, the languages, the base language, the high-level functional requirements are already in there for solving whatever the next requirement is, whatever the next mission space is going to be. So here's moving on to the next slide, which is probably what you all are interested in and may not have seen before. Here is your list of small business and large business awardees in the Encore 3 suites, denoted with the little radio dot is those contractors that were also in the full and open suite. These are the folks that Carlen mentioned. We have we have directories for how to contact them. on her portal who the POCs are to reach out to these folks to figure out how to team with them. So we encourage that. And the study slide, which is the next slide, so we can keep going. Slide 8, please, is orchestrated similarly. Here's your 23 small business awardees. There's a good amount of those that are joint ventures. So there's a lot of different partners there. Each of our small business awardees and our large businesses brought to the table maybe 4 or 5 individual partners from academia and research-based institutions to really convince us that they could solve any unknown or known requirement known today. But that doesn't mean that something won't come up that they need to link back up with folks out there and that have solutions in areas that they don't currently have solutions for. So we hit home on the last slide so that we can get into the meat and your real questions. So we have at least 20 minutes for that. DISA is unique in that we have our own 2 premier contract vehicles. As Carlen mentioned, these are first look contract vehicles. So for the most part, DISA requirements look to solve, or DISA requirement owners have to look to solve their solutions, their problems through either Encore 3 or Seti first. If they're going to go elsewhere, there's a little bit of a justification to do so. But there are a lot of benefits to using what we already have. There's a lot of proven experience between the vast number of pre-qualified awardees that we have at DISA across the 2 suites. There is a gambit of evaluation methodologies available to requirement owners. While at Seti, we try to hammer home best value, there's a lot of things along the best value and LPTA continuum that you can utilize. I'll finish with this because my batteries in this laptop's going to die, so I have to plug it in, which means I have to go off screen. The on and off ramp capability is really what is going to ensure that both of our premier contract vehicles have a robust competition set in the small business arenas for the gambit of IT mission areas that DISA integrates with. And being able to continue to have a way to get your foot in the door, even though those premier contracts have already been awarded, we believe has set us up as the government to ensure that our contracts are refreshed and stay relevant for their entire life cycles and the life cycles after that. All right, I'm gonna plug my laptop in. Carlen, over to you.
Okay, so I want to add in a couple more things on top of that. The first thing is DISA has a policy of small business first. And what that means is that every requirement that comes into DISA is automatically put into the small business program unless and until market research determines that small business cannot do it. And so when Chris was talking about, you have to kind of justify going away from a first look contract, one of those justifications, and again, it's not a formal justification, it's documented in market research. And one of those is that if we need to be meeting other federally designated categories, since we don't have the ability to set aside further within the small business pools. So if we know there's a lot of service disabled veteran-owned businesses, then we can use the VETS 2 contract. Or if we aren't getting what we need from there, the market research is what justifies our going to other contract vehicles. So we utilize all the GWACs, all the federal supply schedules, and we have that authority to do it to make sure that we're reaching all of our small business goals. So I just want to let everybody else know that on here, that is what DISA does. And with that, I think we'll kick it back over to Ms. Washington so we can start getting some of the questions answered.
All righty. So the first question that we have is about the slides. So yes, the slides will be available via our website, or you can email. The email address is in the chat, under the chat in the beginning. There's a PAO email you can email if you want them before we post them on the website, but they will be available on our website. The next question. So you talked a little bit about the facility clearance. So Chris, can you elaborate?
Yeah. Here's the God's honest answer about it. Without a contract, getting an FCL through DCSA, the facility clearance branch, the FCB, is very difficult. We a working relationship with DCSA and the FCB, and even at the IDIQ level, I cannot guarantee that all of my contracts, my task orders awarded off the IDIQ are going to be secret or above. Lots of them are unclassed. If you have an unclassed contract with the Department of Defense, they don't see you as needing an FCO. And so even though they have a base contract with Seti or Encore 3, it's been an uphill battle getting them to wrap their heads around why it's important for you all to have the FCL so that you can have access to solicitation documents, et cetera. It is not easy to do it. The best thing to do is to look at those prime awardees, partner with them, so that, because they all have FCLs, and now they have the ability that they have the 254s cut that they can now sponsor you. So if you develop a relationship with them, they bring you onto their team, that is a more ferocious avenue to obtain an FCL than having the government sponsor you without an actual contract.
Okay, and then the other thing I would offer is on January 14th, we did a webinar with Mr. Stephen Mapes, the Small Business Director at DCSA. So you can take a look at that on our YouTube channel. There's contact information there for Mr. Mapes, but I highly encourage you to take a look at that as well. The next question we have is about SBIRs. So this company was awarded a phase 2 SBIR from the Air Force. Is that something that DISA would accept?
It depends on what the SBIR was for, whether we had a requirement for it, and most importantly, whether we had money for it. If you were actually awarded the phase 2 SBIR and it is something we want, it's most likely we would want you to finish the phase 2, and then we would have full access to that in a phase 3. So you can email me, tell me what it is, we can see about that. But generally, we haven't been on the forefront of SBIRs. We have this year most recently taken advantage of the phase 3 portion of SBIRs.
Roger that. The next question, the 2018 NDAA increased the sole source justification threshold for tribal and native-owned 8A entities to $100 million. But the DISA acquisition regulation supplement hasn't been revised and still requires competition for 8A actions over $4 million. Is there any news yet on changing that?
So we're actually doing a whole review of our DARs at this moment. So I have it on my desktop. And what that actually says is we have a strong preference for competition, and that if we were going to do anything above that traditional threshold, then there were further reviews. And so we've actually gone further within DISA, and we have always been able to use that 22 million and now the 100 million. But what we're requiring is to look at, should we do that? Just because you can doesn't mean we should. And will we get better offers and better prices if we compete that work? And so we can do it, and we have done it. It's just there's a further review process and other people involved in the decisions on whether we use that or not, or we do a competitive 8A.
Roger. I'm going to reach back to one of the earlier questions and just open it up for the audience, but I'll turn it over to Chris to answer this one. AI technology, so artificial intelligence. If a company has artificial intelligence capabilities, is there a specific DISA department that they should turn to for that, Chris?
So what's really cool about AI and what DISA does is that we are trying to integrate artificial intelligence and cognitive computing into all of our processes and what we do and how our machines communicate. All of our mission areas are looking to figure out how to grow, how to be more effective, how to be with the integration of AI technologies. So that goes for our satellite folks, our EMS, electromagnetic spectrum folks, mobility, cyber situational awareness, cybersecurity. Everybody across DISA is doing AI. So we don't have an AI program office. What we do have is a direct link with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, the JAIC, that does sort of the big umbrella AI R&D for the department. With that said, if you say you have a cool AI thing that you'd like to show us, Carlen's given you all the URLs to get to that. Those are the doors, right? So send us your stuff to open those doors. We can figure out how and if they are applicable to various areas. AI is a big thing at DISA. Everybody's trying to do it, but you really got to, I would suggest you got to really hone in and on what can I do specifically for DISA. Don't just tell us that you're an AI expert, you've got this cool thing. Find us a mission area, find us a use case, a theoretical use case even, that can make what you do applicable in our mission space. Over.
Thank you. So we have some new companies that are interested in getting on the Seti and the Encore vehicles. How can they go about doing that?
So right now, look at the prime contractors and see if they can add folks to their teams. All the contracts allow for companies to be added at the base level or at the instant task order level as well. Otherwise, we will be looking to on-ramp if necessary, probably around year 4. But until we have an on-ramping event, other than the subcontracting opportunities, those are the only ways to get onto those vehicles currently.
Thank you. So the next is about 2 recent cases, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not, but they have provided an update to the rule of 2. Do you know how those 2 recent cases might impact Encore and the Seti contracts? So
Matthew Wilber, I am actually not familiar with those cases, so I don't know what they entail. But if you email me directly, I will look it up and find out what it is, and then what implications. Obviously, if there are major implications, we will comply with whatever the guidance is. But I don't know if it's impacted the FAR or how we execute contracts.
We know who to ask.
But right. So, but I definitely am curious. So I will look that up. DISA smallbusiness@mail.mil is how to reach me, since I don't have Matthew's email.
Thank you. Does DISA award sole source direct contracts to women-owned small businesses?
We can. We haven't. Because generally the role with the sole sources outside of the 8A program with service disabled, women-owned, hub zone, the caveat generally is if they're the only small business in that federally designated category, can you award them? And we just haven't found that to be the case. Whenever we have something out there, we can usually find more than one in any of the categories that can do the work. So we can do it. We just have not done it yet.
So the next question is a small business. They are currently working as a subcontractor operating in the cybersecurity policy space with various organizations. And they're looking for some help, assistance, feedback on if they've got a SAMS ID number, a DUNS number. Does this mean that they have the basics needed to respond to RFPs? So I'll give you some resources to go off and look at. On the Defense Acquisition University, they have a 10 steps to procurement readiness if you're looking at doing business with across DoD. They also have something that's called a placemat, which has, I believe, 5 steps, which talks to all of the services and the different innovation centers. So in the Department of Navy, we have Naval X and the Tech Bridges there. We have our SBIR office. We have my office, the Office of Small Business Programs. So there are definitely some resources out there that I would turn you on to. But I'll turn it over to Carlen and Chris for DISA. What advice can you offer Ms. Ramos on how to get started with doing business with DISA?
First thing I would say is send an email to disasmallbusiness@mail.mil and ask for an invite to our DISA 101 small business orientation. What I will tell you tends to be the #1 barrier to entry with DISA is that facility site clearance. That 95% of our requirements do come out with the requirement at time of proposal to have that facility site clearance. So to me, that's the #1 thing, is checking out those requirements to ensure that if you put a proposal together, we're going to evaluate it, that you can pass the responsibility and the compliancy determinations.
Okay. And also with that, I believe we had one of the questions in the chat was, if a company wanted to present a capabilities brief or had reached out to your main email address, how long does it take for someone to respond to them? What should they expect before they reach back out again?
So it depends upon whose email you're sending it to. I actually find myself sometimes sending them to our group email boxes just to see who and if they'll respond. I will tell you, at the DISA small business at mail.mil, we are pretty quick at answering. So if you don't get an answer within days, follow back up. Oftentimes we find that someone's mistyped something, and that's one of the reasons why we shortened our email address. Other boxes within DISA, if you don't, I would say give it 3 to 5 days, and if not, do a follow-up. If you don't get a response from somebody, feel free to forward that to our email box, and we'll see if we can shake it down. You know, because sometimes they don't get to the right people, or they get to an old box, but other times you're just being blown off, and sometimes our office can facilitate a response or an answer, or get it to the right person.
Great. So for the last question, because we're almost out of time, for the OTAs, does this use O&M funding for that?
So my answer as a former contracting officer should be probably not. We should.
Yeah, sorry, I just answered that in chat.
Yeah, we should be using the RDT&E money, but I don't know that as a fact. But that would be my guess, since it's supposed to be for new stuff.
Yeah, we did. So we've put together kind of internally SETI has a lot of similar capabilities that OTAs have. So we have SETI and OTA kind of crosswalk. It is regulatorily required that prototype OTAs have to use RDT&E. If a prototype OTA goes into a prod OTA, that's when they're authorized to use O&M dollars. Great.
All right. I think that is it for today. I appreciate both of your time in joining us, and everyone for joining us, all of our participants. If you have any topics that you're interested in us featuring on our webinar series, please send an email to osbp.pao@navy.mil. Thank you again, and until next time, stay safe and healthy.
Thanks, everyone.